Very good. So we have to start our discussion with the dynamics of India-Afghanistan relationship, right? So before you write anything, you need to listen lot of things. And चांस की बात है जब आपका ये लेक्चर आया है तो सिर्फ एक ही चीज न्यूज में है वो है तालिबान अफगानिस्तान एंड पाकिस्तान. So it is just a matter of chance. Now, since independence, Pakistan has just focused along the eastern borders, showing obsession with Kashmir. Totally ignored the western borders. The development of the western region, okay, ignoring the aspirations of the people of west, right? Already these were the tribal areas dominated by ethnic Pashtuns. So these people are of different culture altogether. Their language is different, and politics is dominated by Muslim Punjabis. Okay. Now, so the Pashtun leaders of this region, they never wanted to be the part of Islamic Pakistan. That is why when Constitution of Pakistan was constituted, more autonomy was given to these people. They were federally administered tribal areas. Okay, that you can govern these territories through your own tribal laws, right? Very recently, the name of these two has changed to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Okay, now it's one of the province. Pakistan is also federal politics, right? State assemblies and the central assembly, but military as an institution controls lot of power. ठीक. Now, if you see Afghanistan इतना समझ आ गया. Afghan politics has always impacted the dynamics of this region, and India's stand is we should not see these issues in isolation. US was only concerned about Afghanistan. Okay, Pakistan is showing obsession for Kashmir. US ignoring Kashmir, and according to India, there cannot be perpetual peace till the time we'll keep discriminating these issues and group. There needs to be consistency, and we should not distinguish and separate good terror from bad terror. ठीक है? Afghanistan is known as the graveyard of empires. ये भी पता होगा. Britain was never able to keep Afghanistan under its control, right? If out of whole South Asia, a country who was able to keep its sovereignty intact was Afghanistan. Britain fought 3 wars. They wanted to create Afghan as a buffer against Russian Tsar. But after every war, they were only able to keep it intact for some point of time. So Britain learned this lesson. Then Soviet for 10 years tried to have a political influence. Then US for 20 years. So Afghanistan is known as graveyard of empires. The saying goes that God should protect you from the tooth of the tiger, the venom of the cobra, and the revenge of the Afghan. They are never tired of wars. कि किसी ने नहीं कहा, ये मैं कह रहा हूं. They live to fight. ठीक है? If they have no one to fight with, they will fight with each other. ठीक है ना? तो उनको लड़ना है. They live to fight. ठीक? Considering the kind of history they have, and this is where the Britain has tried to give justification of their imperial powers, their imperial policy, that is the white man's burden. Okay, that is white man burden. What Britain has tried to project, it is we who have spread light, humanity, and civilization, democracy world over. And had Afghanistan would have been under our control for 100 years or so, we would have also taught them democracy, and they would have been civilized. So if medieval anarchy is still intact in Afghanistan, why? Because it was never under our political control. So हम उन्हें 100 साल तक पीटते, exploit नहीं करते, उन्हें train करते. Aristotle से connect करो, master slave. One slave will develop virtue, master will free the slave. This is what they have tried to. This is how they have tried to justify their imperial policies. ठीक है ना? Because Afghanistan was never under our control, that is why medieval era anarchy prevails in Afghanistan. ठीक है? Now, when we say Islam, Islam has two main sects, Shias, Sunnis. अब आपको समझ आता है, एक तो fault lines are on the lines of religion, another fault lines are on the lines of ethnicities. Ethnicity भी तो fault line है ना, Punjabis versus Pashtuns. So there can be Punjabi Sunni, there can be Pashtun Sunni, there can be Baluch Sunni and Baluch Shia. Which is more stronger identity, your ethnicity, your culture, or religion? Ethnicity, culture. Baluchis will speak same language, they will have same culture. Shias and Sunnis will have same culture to follow, same kind of clothing they will wear. Punjabis has a different wearing from whom? Baluchis, and Baluchis are different from Pashtuns. So ethnicity and culture is also one of the strong centripetal force. Okay? So Islam has two main sects. There can be liberal Shia, there can be fundamentalist Shias. Similar with the Sunnis. And the fundamentalist, within fundamentalist, ये बहुत deep down concept है. Okay, within fundamentalist Sunnis, there are Wahhabis and there are Salafis. इसलिए हम इन्हें religion नहीं मानते, ism है. ये क्या है? Ideologies. Wahhabis and Salafis. Right? So many use these two interchangeably, Wahhabism, Salafism. They want to revive the purest form of Islam. They want to govern the territory as per Sharia law. They are against the written constitution. They believe in the imposition of the religious text and they have their own interpretation. Okay. They consider music, Western music, if living with the Western values is against Islam. Western music, Western culture, and they consider this will lead to the delusion of Islam and they want to revive the purest form of Islam. They are ready to die for this particular objective. Follower of Wahhabism are Al-Qaeda, Taliban. So Taliban is a political outfit whose objective is to govern Afghanistan through Sharia law. This is what Taliban is all about. क्या है Taliban? A political entity whose objective is to govern Afghanistan through Sharia law. ठीक? So there was a clash between two political outfits within Afghanistan, Northern Alliance leadership and Taliban. Northern Alliance leadership stood for Republic of Afghanistan, Islamic Republic. Official region Islam, but the head of the state is the elected one. Taliban stands for Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. ठीक? So different political objectives to achieve. Okay, one stands for Islamic Republic, other stood for Islamic Emirate. So Taliban's objective is Islamic Emirate. Now Taliban as a political entity has only interest lies in Afghanistan. And Al-Qaeda's objective is, what is the objective of Al-Qaeda and how Al-Qaeda is different from Taliban? So they are not same outfits, though driven by same religious ideology with different political objectives to achieve. ठीक है? Al-Qaeda is an entity created by Arabs. Taliban is an entity created by Afghans, mainly Pashtuns. So Taliban is an entity of Afghans, Al-Qaeda is an entity of Arabs. And Al-Qaeda, created by Osama bin Laden, he declared jihad against West. So Al-Qaeda's objective is jihad against West and its allies. They consider the monarchy of Saudi as the puppet of West and they have questioned the presence of the Western forces in Saudi Arabia and they consider their holiest sites are under the new imperialism of West, that is Makkah and Medina. Similarly, they consider Israel as an enemy state for their atrocities against Arabs. Right? So they want to revenge the atrocities against Muslims. But the double standards of Al-Qaeda as an organization is they have never issued any statement against China, despite the blame on China for doing atrocities against Uyghurs of Xinjiang. Neither OIC has ever issued an anti-China statement. Never Al-Qaeda has threatened the state of China. Okay, Al-Qaeda has also never attacked India directly. So Al-Qaeda is a political outfit of Arabs. Taliban is a political outfit of Afghans, mainly which ethnicities? Pashtuns. And Afghanistan has always been dominated and controlled by Pashtuns. It is the most it is the strongest ethnicity of Afghan, Pashtuns. Within Pashtuns also there are, अभी उसमें नहीं जाते, within Pashtuns there are, so Pashtun is not like a homogeneous entity. Within Pashtuns also there are different types of ethnicities. Okay. But mainly it is Pashtuns. Now many believe Hamas is follower of Wahhabism. Though there is a difference of opinion, many believe Hamas leadership believes in Palestinian nationalism. Their only objective is to have a sovereign state of Palestine and make it a republic. Other believe no, Hamas leadership also stands for a sovereign state of Palestine and to be governed through Sharia law. तो यहाँ भी डिफरेंस ऑफ ओपिनियन है कि हमास लीडरशिप में दो तरह की लीडरशिप है. वन हु वांट्स रिपब्लिक बट दे आर ड्रिवन बाय द ideology of Palestinian nationalism, a sovereign state of their own. Others believe Hamas leadership wants to govern through Sharia law. Right? Then emerged Islamic State. And Islamic State stood for Iraq and Syria. And later they broadened their objective to Caliphate. And IS emerged where? In Iraq and Syria. That is created by Arabs. And IS is driven by Salafism. And Salafis wants Caliphate with one supreme leader, that is Khalifa. So if you see Taliban and IS, they are the same they are driven by different religious ideology with different political objectives to achieve. Taliban's objective is Islamic Emirate, IS objective is Islamic Caliphate, and their caliphate extends from West Asia and it ends in South Asia in Kashmir. So aspiration of IS is a threat for all the republics of the region. In fact, IS aspiration is even a threat for the dictators and the monarchs. That is why Saudi monarchy will also be, IS is a challenge and threat for whom? Monarchy of Saudi, because they are anti-monarchs, because they want one religious leader who understands and interprets Quran. So they want a theocratic state, not a dictatorship or a monarchy. So which kind of state they want to create? A theocratic state. So that is why IS is a threat for Taliban also. And this is the reason why the rising presence of Islamic State in Afghanistan is a challenge for Taliban. समझ में आई बात? इतनी बात ही समझने से बहुत कुछ समझ आ जाता है पॉलिटिक्स का. ठीक है? So 9/11 was done by whom? Al-Qaeda. But US started global war against terror, means US war against Islamic fundamentalism. That is war against the follower of Wahhabism. So the US global war against the US after 9/11 onwards, US painted all these organizations with the same brush, that they are against liberties and liberal order. And they are fundamentalist. I hope you remember Arab exceptionalism. That if monarchies will topple, Islamic fundamentalists will take over power and they will going to brutally suppress the liberties. Monarchs are running a authoritarian state, not a totalitarian state, but Islamic fundamentalists will govern a totalitarian state. They even interfere in your personal sphere. Like right now, Taliban is doing what to wear, what should be the length of your beard. That is also been, the dictate has been issued by Taliban. They have created an institution. They have created an institution of virtue, a ministry of virtue and vice, who will make sure that people follow these virtues and should not do these things. They have created religious police who impose the dictates issued by the government of Taliban. समझ में आई बात? क्या? फेडरल एडमिनिस्ट्रेड ट्राइबल एरिया, FATA, फाटा। Against India, they have never issued even any anti-India statement for the oppression of Kashmiris. ठीक है? इतना समझ में आया? So IS has emerged much later after Arab Spring, and Arab Spring came in 2011. ये बातें आएंगी West Asian dynamics में. So IS and Taliban, they are antithetical to each other, believer of different religious ideology and with different political objectives to achieve. मैंने आपको शायद ये भी बताया था पहले that way back in the medieval time there was a pact signed between Wahhabis and the monarchy of Saudi. Saudis committed to open madrasas to preach the ideology of Wahhabism. So Saudi keep investing in other Islamic countries, and within Saudi Arabia there are madrasas who preach Wahhabism, and in return Wahhabis will not challenge the power of the monarchs of Saudi. So that is why Wahhabis are not challenging the monarchy, and Wahhabis are comfortable with the political head of the state. But Salafis wants religious state. That is why IS is a threat for monarchs. IS will be a threat for the whole of Pakistan or not? IS will be a threat for whole of the Central Asian countries or not? Even Russia's Chechnya region is the aspiration of Islamic State. So IS is a threat for Russia or not? This is why around the New Year, last New Year, there was a huge bomb attack in Moscow in one of the club. Did by whom? Islamic State. Okay? So Islamic State's aspiration is a threat for all republics and monarchies. And Salafis are threat for monarchs of Saudi, but Wahhabis will not challenge the monarchy of Saudi. So the Saudi monarchs, they in the medieval history, they created an army of Ikhwans, and they used to wear the black dresses with black robes and swords in their hand to spread Wahhabism in West Asia. And that is why many believe Islam is a religion of sword, but the followers claim it's a religion of peace. So Wahhabism has been spread through sword in West Asia, pushed by whom? Monarchs of Saudi. Who tried to revive this Ikhwan spirit? Fighters of Islamic State. That is why they used to wear the black dresses with black robes, swords replaced by guns this time. But they are the follower of Salafism, not Wahhabism. And that is why Saudi can't afford to support Salafism. Thick. Now, 1979, Soviet Union entered in Afghanistan. Soviet entered. There was a communist leadership in power in Afghanistan. The policies of the communist government turned the Islamic fundamentalists of Afghanistan against the communists. And 1979 is the revival of the Cold War phase. US saw this as an opportunity to counter Soviet. And the US, with the help of Pakistan, started training Islamic fundamentalists against Soviet. अभी तक तालिबान नहीं है यहाँ पे. ये कौन है? Islamic fundamentalist. ठीक. The society of Afghanistan, in the society of Afghanistan, still there was a kind of satrap system prevails. What is satrap system? Medieval history में पढ़ा होगा ना satrap system. क्या होता है सैट्रैप सिस्टम? नहीं, satrap system is when there is no central power and power is in the hands of so many feudal lords. They have a territory under their control, they have their own army, and they govern this particular, they are the leader of the tribe. So satrap 1, satrap 2, satrap 3, satrap 4, when there is no central authority, that is called satrap system, right? So the geography of Afghanistan is such that it is very difficult to have to administer it centrally from Kabul, because the areas are mountainous, difficult to administer from Kabul. So whosoever has controlled Kabul, it has been accepted that this is the political authority and the entity who is governing Afghanistan. But Afghanistan has never been under any kind of central authority. ठीक है ना, एक सेंट्रल अथॉरिटी कभी भी नहीं हुई अफगानिस्तान में. राइट नाउ इट इज तालिबान हु इज कंप्लीटली कंट्रोलिंग अफगानिस्तान. सो देयर वर different warlords, Tajak warlord, Uzbek warlord. So there are, other than Pashtuns, there are other different ethnicities in Afghanistan like Tajakis, Turkis, Uzbekis, and they have their own warlords. ठीक, warlord, ठीक है ना, warlord होता है द ट्राइबल हेड, जिनके अंडर में आर्मी होती है, उनका कंट्रोल होता है टेरिटरी पर, ठीक है ना. These warlords have come together whenever any external enemy has attacked, and once that external enemy has left, they have always fought with each other. ठीक है, ये कहानी है. So there are Tajakis, Turkis, Uzbekis, ठीक. Might be आपने एक warlord का नाम सुना होगा, अहमद शाह मसूद, Tajaki warlord. And Taliban is an entity created by Pashtun warlords, ठीक है ना. और मैं आपको बता रहा था ना, पश्तून्स में भी डिफरेंट ट्राइब्स हैं. पश्तून इज ब्रॉडर एंटिटी लाइक दुर्रानीज, यूसुफजई, आफरीदीज. आफरीदी क्या है? ट्राइब है विद इन पश्तून्स, ठीक है ना. तो डिफरेंट सब ट्राइब्स विद इन द पश्तून ट्राइब. तो ये सारे तजाकी, तुर्की, उज्बेकी एंड पश्तून वॉरलॉर्ड्स, और पश्तून्स में भी कई तरह के वॉरलॉर्ड थे. US started training them with the help of Pakistan, and lot of funding came from Saudi Arabia, and madrasas were opened in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa to preach Wahhabism. And Wahhabis believe in purest form of Islam, revival of Islam, fight against infidel communist. So Afghans, और यहाँ भी पश्तून्स थे, and Pashtuns since independence never accepted the legality of Durand Line, and Pashtuns aspire for greater Pashtunistan. Their aspiration is greater Pashtunistan. हाँ, नहीं. Integrate Afghanistan with Khyber Pakhtunkhwa because it is the Pashtun dominated land. So there are many Pashtuns who aspire for greater Pashtunistan. Integrate Afghan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and governed by Pashtuns. So a lot of funding came and madrasas opened and imams being sent to preach Wahhabism. इन पश्तून्स को जिनको Wahhabism पढ़ाया, they were Pakistanis. These borders are porous with high passes, Tora Bora mountains. ठीक, मैं एक बार पास हुआ हूँ इसके ऊपर से, उस अब तो फ्लाइट्स बैंड है यूरोप जाते हुए. तो अमेजिंग टेरेन है, मतलब आप प्लेन में बैठ के देखोगे तो आपको लगेगा मतलब इट्स लाइक टोटली डिफरेंट प्लैनेट. यू विल फील इट्स अ टोटली डिफरेंट प्लैनेट, ठीक है ना. There is also one saying goes for Afghanistan, when God was done with the construction, with the formation of the earth, whatever God left with, God decided to throw everything, and this led to the creation of Afghanistan. It is this rugged, it is not planned the way other geographies you will see is very planned geography. Afghanistan is this rugged that it seems as if God lost interest and God was done with the creation of earth and the planet, and whatever material God was left with, God decided to throw, and it led to the creation of a piece of land called Afghanistan, because there is no sink in its geography. तो ये टोरा बोरा माउंटेन्स हैं with passes, ठीक. So you cannot fence these borders, you cannot uh, stop the movement of people to and fro in these mountains. These are high mountains with passes, ठीक है ना. And the locals know these passes very well. There are mountains with caves also, ठीक. So यहाँ पर पाकिस्तानी पश्तून्स को वहाबिज्म पढ़ाया. Afghan warlords gave a call for jihad. एक सेकंड यार, इनको मना कर दिया करो ना, इतना शोर मचा रहे हैं. So these warlords gave a call for jihad, that Islamic war against communist infidel. So it is a holy war. They gave a call for holy war of Islam against infidel, that is non-believer communist, ठीक. Arabs and Muslims from other parts of the world decided to participate with Afghans in this holy war as an act of loyalty towards God. Okay, so many Muslims from Europe, Muslims world over decided to go to Afghanistan to participate in this holy war with Afghans against communists, and majority of the Arabs entered into Afghanistan. This led to the emergence of Arab-Afghan alliance. 1980 Arab-Afghan alliance बन गया. Strong solidarity between Arabs and Afghan. Osama bin Laden also traveled to Afghanistan. He was the son of the rich Saudi businessman, and he came with lot of funds. He brought lot of money in this particular war, and that is how he earned the respect of the Afghan warlords, that he is pouring so much of money into our war against communist Soviet. ठीक हुआ. 1989 Soviet चला जाता है यहाँ से. One Soviet left. Now Pashtun warlords wanted to establish their own dominance, and this was the time which gave lot of confidence to the Islamic world that we have been able to defeat one superpower. Now Osama bin Laden decides to create Al-Qaeda. ये Al-Qaeda बना देता है, and declared war against West or jihad against West to liberate West Asia from the clutches of Western imperialism. And he declared jihad against West and its allies like Israel. तो यहाँ Al-Qaeda आ गया, ठीक. Meanwhile, civil war starts between Tajik, Turk, Uzbek warlord and Pashtun warlords. ठीक. Civil war कहाँ start हो जाती है? Afghanistan में. So this civil war starts between the alliance of warlords of other ethnicities and Pashtuns. The alliance of these warlords, they stood for Northern Alliance. Oh, sorry, they stood for Islamic Republic. That we want a centrally elected leadership. So they stood for Islamic Republic and they stood for Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. This civil war starts in 1990. हाँ, अब एमिरेट मींस व्हाट, जैसे यूनाइटेड अरब एमिरेट है ना, so United Arab Emirates, Emirate will be led by amirs, that is the feudal lords. So these Pashtun warlords wanted to keep power in their hand or not? Are they fighting for religion or power? It is all about power. मैं check कर रहा था एक मिनट. ठीक, so they stood for Islamic Emirate, means power should always be remain in our hand. There should not be any election. It is Islamic Emirate. Amirs will govern the state. One will become home minister, one will become food minister, one will become foreign minister, like this. ठीक. Now तजाक थे, तुर्क थे, उज्बेक थे, ठीक है, और इधर कौन थे? पश्तून वॉरलॉर्ड्स who stood for Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. This civil war started in 1990. India supported leadership of Northern Alliance. We backed them. And Pakistan backed Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. Means Pashtun warlords. And this turned these Pashtun warlords anti-India. Pakistan was having the advantage of geography. Right? And 1996, these Pashtun warlords came to power and they created a political entity with the name Taliban. 94 they created Taliban and 96 they came to power. Talib means the educated one. They consider themselves as the learned one, the aware one, the educated one. The leaders are Madarsa educated, so mainly who joined this movement? Madarsa educated Muslim youth, which learned what? Wahhabism. From whom? Islamic scholars. So Talib means the educated one. And that is why the foreign minister has visited Deoband. Because they believe their ideology emerges from Darul Usloom Deoband. Okay? So Talib means the educated one. So their leaders and the followers and the fighters, they are Madarsa educated Muslim youth. So 96 they came to power. And once they came to power, this gave strategic depth to Pakistan. And it impacted India's outreach here. Because Taliban was anti-India, we cut down all diplomatic ties with them, projecting them as Islamic fundamentalists. 1999 Indian airline was hijacked and they took the plane to Kandahar, and Kandahar was under the control of Taliban. We have to release the terrorist groups who later created, I guess, one of the violent outfit, that is Lashkar-e-Toiba, and they planned parliament attack on India in 2001. Hafiz Saeed है ना? Masood Azhar and Hafiz Saeed. Hafiz Saeed planned 2001 terrorist attack on Indian parliament. So Islamic fundamentalism here increase violence and instability in the region or not? So when Taliban came to power in 1996, it impacted India's core interest badly. What were these core interests? भूल जाओ, अभी सिर्फ ये याद रखो. It impacted India's core interest badly. ठीक? Not core interest or core national interest. And Pakistan gained the strategic depth which served the interest for China in the region. ठीक है? India lost the strategic depth. So we didn't have a strategic depth in Afghanistan from 96 till 2001. 6 से 2001 तक हमारे पास कोई डेप्थ नहीं थी यहाँ पर, because Taliban came to power and Taliban was anti-India. Three-fourths of the territory came under the control of Taliban, and the leaders of Northern Alliance were keeping around one-fourth of the territory in their hand. And Masood Azhar, the Tajiki warlord, uh, known as the Sher of Panjshir, he continued its struggle against the Taliban at that time, and later he was assassinated by Taliban. क्या नाम है मैं बताता हूँ एक सेकंड रुको अंडर तालिबान ठीक अहमद शाह मसूद ही वाज अ तजिक वॉरलॉर्ड तो ऐसे एक उज्बेक वॉरलॉर्ड था वो उज्बेक वॉरलॉर्ड वो शिया था सो ही वाज गेटिंग बैकिंग फ्रॉम ईरान तजिक Ahmad Shah Masood, he was a Tajik warlord. He was getting the backing from Tajikistan. He was a Sunni warlord, but वो तजाकी था. उज्बेकी warlord शिया था. ठीक है ना? Right? Now, when Taliban came to power, which is a follower of Wahhabism, will escalate tension with Iran. And they went for the suppression of Shias within Afghanistan, Hazaras. Shias of Afghan are Hazaras. So they assassinated Hazaras. They started using violence against Christians, Hindus, Sikh, and they went for they devastated the UNESCO protested site, that is Bamiyan statues of Buddha. अब आयरनी देखो जो प्रेसिडेंट कॉन्फ्रेंस हुई है दैट अफगान एम्बेसी में वहां पे फ्लैग अफगानिस्तान का है और पीछे डेवास्टेटेड केव्स ऑफ बेमियान बुद्धा हैं ठीक है ना प्रेजेंट फॉरेन मिनिस्टर व्हेन ही इज एड्रेसिंग द मीडिया in his back the portrait is of Bamiyan Buddha which was devastated by Taliban. Irony hai ye, right? So fundamentalism increased and Osama bin Laden created Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda declared war against West and he set up terrorist camps within Afghanistan to train fighters to wage jihad against West. इतना कुछ चल रहा था आपके नेबरहुड में क्या तो हाँ आपका नहीं था अच्छा बिफोर यू ओके आप 90s के बाद वाले हो अच्छा 2000 के बाद के हो तो अब यहाँ पर अल कायदा ने अपने टेररिस्ट कैंप्स बना दिए ठीक है ना टू ट्रेन फाइटर्स एंड पाकिस्तान आल्सो यूज दीस टेररिस्ट कैंप टू ट्रेन terrorists who can create violence in Kashmir. 90 onwards, Pakistan pushed for proxy war. Pakistan learned this lesson in Afghanistan and Pakistan wanted to replicate this war against India to wage jihad and Pakistan created groups like Lashkar Jaish and Hizbul Mujahideen. ठीक है? And they also used the territory of Afghanistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa to set up their terrorist camp, trained militants and attack India. ठीक? That is why when Pakistan wanted to acquire nuclear weapons, so that Pakistan wanted to cut down the chances of conventional full-fledged war. So Pakistan waged a proxy war against India post 90s. 2001 पे इंडियन पार्लियामेंट अटैक होता है और 2001 इंडियन पार्लियामेंट who attacks इंडियन पार्लियामेंट terrorist groups from Kashmir and West was deaf, not listening to our grievances at all. And 2001 पे 9/11 हो जाता है which was done by Al-Qaeda. Now US realized the severity of Islamic extremism. ठीक है ना? So when we were saying year after year that terrorism is a threat, but US was never concerned about these terrorist groups. So once their soil came under attack, they were now ready to go for a global war against terrorism, right? So US blamed Al Qaeda and US demanded that leaders of Taliban should hand over Osama bin Laden to us, so that we can be able to give justice to the people who died in this act of terror. So we need to ensure justice. But the leaders of Taliban, they said Osama bin Laden is not on our soil. He is not here. We have not given. We are not running terrorist camps from our soil. We have nothing to do with this act of terror. In fact, the leaders of Taliban, who themselves who themselves project themselves as what, uh, the followers of Islam, madrasa trained, and they have learned Islam in madrasas. They project themselves as imams also. They issued fatwa against this act of terror, that it was anti-Islamic to kill the innocent civilians. So they issued fatwa against the act of 9/11, and they said Osama bin Laden is not on our soil. But West was never ready to accept this, and they were ready to start a war against Taliban. And they said this war is to dismantle terrorism from the world. Global war against terrorism. Thick. They were hand in hand as per the West. ठीक, अभी अभी पूरी बात बताता हूँ. ठीक. So they said that you need to. They said Al Qaeda is not here. Neither we are allowing any terrorist camp, and we are not. We have never allowed them to operate their terror camps from our soil. But US was not ready to do so, and they were ready to go for the all-out military operation against Al Qaeda and Taliban. And they painted them with the same brush. That is why many of the students, many of us were never aware of the difference between Al Qaeda and Taliban. Al Qaeda is a transnational actor having worldwide presence, and their jihad is against the West. It's a violent transnational actor. Taliban is a political entity whose only objective is to govern Afghanistan through Sharia law. So, दो अलग-अलग objectives हैं. ठीक? Al Qaeda is a transnational, violent, transnational, non-state actor. It does not have a political objective. Its only objective is to revenge atrocities against Muslims. Its objective is to liberate West Asia from the clutches of Western imperialism. Their objective is not to govern West Asia. हाँ जी, वो कुछ नहीं करना चाहते. तभी तो मैंने उसके लिए पॉलिटिकल एंटिटी नहीं कहा. मैंने क्या कहा? It's a violent, non-state, transnational actor. Al Qaeda branch of West Asia, Al Qaeda branch of Africa, Al Qaeda branch of Asia. Liberation of West Asia from the clutches of Western imperialism. उनके ये ऑब्जेक्टिव नहीं है ना, ना हो. मोनार्की के अगेंस्ट नहीं है, तभी तो उनको लिबरेट करना है. अभी सुन तो लो, अल कायदा ज्वाइन करना है क्या आपको? इतना इंटरेस्ट अल कायदा में. अब जब वॉर खत्म हुआ यहाँ पर 1989 में, जो पाकिस्तानी पश्तून्स थे, who fought against Soviet, they came back to Pakistan and started living in this part of the world. So the fundamentalist Pashtuns of Pakistan who fought against Soviet came back in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. ठीक? Soviet disintegrated into Russia. New Central Asian republics emerged. 9/11 happened, and 9/11, according to US, was done by the Al Qaeda, and all Al Qaeda members, all Al Qaeda terrorists who did that, they were the citizens of Saudi Arabia. They were Saudi nationals, because Al Qaeda created by whom? Arabs, na? So all were Saudi nationalists as per the US report. ठीक? And finally, US was able to find Osama bin Laden in Pakistan, Abbottabad, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region. Okay, which is a garrison town, military town. Military headquarters was very close to the place where he was living. So probably Pakistan was sheltering Osama bin Laden anyways. So US was able to find where? In Pakistan. And it was done by Saudi nationalist. Monarchy of Saudi and the state of Pakistan was the ally of US in its war against terror. And US fought war against whom? Taliban, that is Afghans, and later in 2003 against Saddam Hussein, that is Iraq, who has nothing to do with 9/11. So US blamed Taliban for giving support to Al Qaeda, and US blamed Saddam Hussein for giving support to Al Qaeda, which is the outfit of Arabs. And Saddam was also Arab nationalist. So US fighting against whom? Taliban and Iraqis. And Saudi and Pakistan became the ally of US, which was done by whom? Saudi. And finally US was able to find where? In Pakistan. So that is why there is a conspiracy against 9/11. It was planned by US for its justification of its war in Afghanistan and Iraq. Afghan war is to control opium and Iraq war was to control oil. That is why conspiracy against Pearl Harbor, which was planned by US itself, so that US can enter into the war and establish hegemony world over. State can do evil things to have power. ये conspiracy है. एक YouTube वीडियो लिखो, अब मुझे पता भी नहीं, चेक करो अवेलेबल है भी या नहीं. 50 क्वेश्चंस ऑन 9/11. अगर थोड़ा सा भी साइंस पता है तो आपका दिमाग हिल जाएगा कि these are known as, this video is created by independent whistleblowers, जिसमें मैकेनिकल इंजीनियर्स, सिविल इंजीनियर्स, केमिकल इंजीनियर्स, they have put 50 questions from the US government and till date US government has not given any answer. मुझे लगता है अब तो हटा भी दिया US ने ये वाली वीडियो. 50 questions on 9/11. ये 3 पार्ट की वीडियो है, पार्ट 1, पार्ट 2, पार्ट 3 है. हाँ हाँ, देखोगे एक बार शुरू करोगे तो बंद ही नहीं कर पाओगे. 50 questions on 9/11. पार्ट 1 है, पार्ट 1 to 3 नहीं, पार्ट 1 of 3. पार्ट 2 कहाँ है? पार्ट 2 चेक करो. नहीं, कोई क्वेश्चंस हैं बस. आप बहुत ही पार्ट 2 चेक करो. नहीं नहीं, 50 क्वेश्चंस ऑन 9/11, ठीक है ना. एंड देन 50 को ये 50 क्वेश्चंस अगर आप सुन लोगे तो आपको लगेगा कि ओके, हम बट इसको निगेट करते हुए, ये मानते हुए कि इट वाज डन बाय अल कायदा, हमें आगे डिस्कशन करना है, ठीक है. सो अरे 50 क्वेश्चंस ऑन 9/11, ठीक है. सो आगे बढ़ते हैं. सो अब आपको समझ आया ना कि कितने नेम इज, हाँ पॉलिटिक्स है और आप क्या ट्रस्ट करने जा रहे हो, ठीक है. आपको बताना जरूरी है, मेरे लिए आपको अवेयर करना जरूरी है. तो इंडिया में कॉन्स्पिरेसी नहीं है. पहलगाम किसने करवाया, पुलवामा किसने करवाया, मैंने आपको हिंदी में बताया भी था कि सरहद पर तनाव है, पता करो देश में चुनाव है. नहीं था. I said this in Hindi, then many students from South India said, sir, what it means. I said that you will not get the same flair in English. ठीक है. That there are tensions on the border. Try to find, are there elections in the country? हाँ, बड़े इसमें मजा नहीं आता है ना. तो सरहद पर चुनाव है, पता करो देश में चुनाव है. If there are tensions on the borders, does it just try to find, are there elections around the corner in the country, so that leaders can use jingoism to fetch votes. क्या 20-23 सोल्जर ही तो मरवाने हैं. कहां से आते हैं? पीजेंट्री से आते हैं, क्या फर्क पड़ता है. 50 questions on 9/11, ठीक है. But official version we have to accept that what US government said, it was done by Al Qaeda, ठीक है. भगवान है सुनना अच्छा लगता है, ऐसी स्टेट इज अ मार्च ऑफ गॉड, तो स्टेट पे ट्रस्ट करना अच्छा लगता है. अदरवाइज वी लॉस्ट द क्वेश्चन. जैसे अगर पता चले भगवान नहीं है, अच्छा तो फिर कौन है, तो इट क्रिएट्स लॉट ऑफ एंजाइटी. सिमिलरली कैन स्टेट आल्सो लाई and state is there for our interest or not, it will create lot of anxiety. So we'll believe the official version of the state because state is a march of God. ठीक है, अब वो किया उनके अकॉर्डिंग अल-कायदा ने, and US declare war against Al-Qaeda, and US decided to make Pakistan as an ally in its war against terror. So again Pakistan became an ally of US in this war, and India's stand was you cannot trust Pakistan because Pakistan is the hub of terror, and US started giving, it was started by Bush, and US started giving a lot of money and weapons to the state of Pakistan to help them in their war against terror, that is Taliban, and dismantling of the terrorist camps by Al-Qaeda. Because it was trained by the military of Pakistan, so US never wanted to send its forces on ground in Afghanistan. US wanted to look towards whom? The army of Pakistan to do this particular work for US. That is why they said, "Na, we are doing dirty work for US from last 30 years." On paper, Pakistan announced its support for US war against terror. So Pakistani leadership clearly announced we are ready to help US and support West in their war against terror. And the money and weapon which Pakistan was getting, Pakistan was channelizing it to push violence against India. So that is why India's stand was, what kind of war against terror you are fighting? You are funding a state who itself is a supporter of terrorism. But West was never concerned about this. This clearly puts a question mark towards West commitment towards terror. West only objective was to be in Afghanistan and have political control there, so that they can control opium cultivation. And opium, narcotics, opium is being smuggled, and this became one of the major route for generating fund for CIA. ठीक है ना, तो सारा गेम ओपियम को कंट्रोल करने का था, क्योंकि तालिबान ने ओपियम फंडिंग बैन कर दी थी, बिकॉज इन इस्लाम इंटॉक्सिकेशन इज हराम. और जानना है या बस करें, सीधा यूपीएससी पढ़ा दो? इंटरेस्टिंग है ना, बस ठीक है. तो इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स याद रखने हैं, राइट? So India was never comfortable with US war against terror. We understand it is for the vested interest US is here. Anyways, NATO entered into Afghanistan. Taliban lost the political control, and US brought whom into power? Leaders of Northern Alliance, and Afghanistan became Islamic Republic and established diplomatic ties with the countries of the world. And we also established diplomatic ties with the new leadership of Afghanistan. So Islamic Republic serves the interest for India. Presence of NATO here serve our interest because we were able to reach out to Afghanistan again. It improved their ties with Iran also. And Iran share border with Afghanistan, and we do not have a direct access. Constraint of geography. The biggest fear of the military of Pakistan, India having strategic depth in Afghanistan, means a pro-Indian leadership in Afghanistan who allows Indian military to have its base here. Then we'll be able to push two-front war against Pakistan. ठीक है, 3 साल पहले मैंने जो प्रेडिक्शन की थी, 3 दिन पहले वो exactly true हुई. This prediction I gave 3 years before. ऐसे ही बोला था मैंने, out of the blue. अभी पता चलेगा, you never know. Soon, Afghan foreign minister will come to New Delhi, and we'll have New Delhi Taliban peace talks, and there will be hard buns in Islamabad. Exact words बोले थे 3 साल पहले, और 3 साल में prediction true हो गई. वो कैसे था prediction, आपको ही पता चल जाएगा. ठीक, तो ये biggest fear है पाकिस्तान का, India's strategic depth in Afghanistan, which can be a nightmare for the military of Pakistan, because India will be able to start two-front war. ठीक, यहां से अब this leadership who came to power, around less than 2% of the population voted for them. So for the leaders of Taliban, it is a puppet of the West. Taliban was in power, West interfered, they lost the control, so they continued their struggle as war against imperialism, that is jihad. Taliban was never eliminated, they only lost the power. and fighters and the leaders of Taliban entered into Baluchistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and they continued their struggle through proxy war against Northern Alliance and NATO. Now Afghan army emerged, so they were fighting against Afghan army and against the army of the West. Right? In this war, when NATO entered, Russia also announced support for NATO against Taliban. Central Asian leaders, Tajik, Turk, Uzbek, because they have tensions with Pashtun warlords, they also announced their support against Taliban. Iran also announced support. On one side, they have tensions with Iran, but here in Afghanistan, so in one arena you can be ally, in other arena you can be enemies, adversary and alliance at the same time. So Iranian generals and NATO generals coordinated with each other in Afghanistan against Taliban. So Taliban has fought against the world. Taliban has fought against the world. पूरी NATO, US, Russia, Central Asia, ईरान मिलके भी किसको नहीं हरा पाया? तालिबान को. ठीक है ना? So this we somehow we need to appreciate their perseverance and the commitment towards their objective and ideology. And why West has never been able to defeat? Because of the proxy support from Pakistan. Had Pakistan never supported, Taliban would have been eliminated. So US was funding them to make sure that their fighters should not be able to reach into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. They seeped into Pakistan and continued their government from exile and continued their attacks against Afghan forces and NATO from Pakistan. Now, when Pakistan announced its support for the West, Islamic fundamentalists in Pakistan projected that their government is the puppet of West, and they declared jihad against the state of Pakistan. When Pakistan announced support for the West, Islamic fundamentalists considered Pakistan as a state has become the ally and the puppet of West, and they declared their jihad against the state of Pakistan. And Pashtuns वापस आ गए थे पाकिस्तान. Wahhabism में they were driven by the ideology of Wahhabism. They created TIT, Tehreek-e-Taliban, and TIT started attacking Pakistan with the objective to govern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa through Sharia law. Also, there were many Islamic fundamentalists within Pakistan who joined TIT. Pakistan allowed CIA to conduct military operations within Pakistan. On will, CIA arrested anyone on mere suspicion that this person is working for Al Qaeda. They arrested the person and sent him to Guantanamo Bay jail. Suna? Tortures of Guantanamo Bay. This maligned the image of the West and generated hatred against the West. Many innocents were convicted. When they came out of jail, they joined Al Qaeda. That's how you turn innocents into terrorists. ठीक है, अगर आज आपको जेल भेज दिया जाए, 2 साल बाद आप क्रिमिनल या टेररिस्ट बन ही जाओगे. That is why I say ना, even if 100 criminals or culprits were not being punished, but at least no innocent should be punished, and we need to have criminal justice system like this. ठीक है, अब समझ आया? तो पाकिस्तान के फंडामेंटलिस्ट स्टेट ऑफ पाकिस्तान के अगेंस्ट हो गए एंड दे डिक्लेयर्ड देयर जिहाद अगेंस्ट पाकिस्तानी आर्मी एंड द स्टेट. दिस ब्रॉट TIT in conflict with the army of Pakistan. आफ्टर 9/11 हुआ ना ये सब कुछ. ठीक, अब यहां पर ये चल रहा था. Now the weapon which Pakistan was getting, Pakistan was covertly giving it to Afghan Taliban to fight against NATO covertly, because Pakistan's interest lies with Afghan Taliban, leaders of Afghan Taliban. And with time, nexus emerged between Afghan Taliban and Tehreek-e-Taliban, and Tehreek-e-Taliban fighting against the state of Pakistan. Pakistan giving weapons to Lashkar Jaish and Hizbul, who have their terrorist camps in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. इनका भी आपस में अलायंस था। ये कश्मीरीज हैं, वो पश्तून्स हैं, वो अफगान पश्तून्स हैं। लड़ाई नहीं हुई, या देयर वाज अ टू एंड फ्रो एंगेजमेंट बिटवीन दीज वॉलेंट ग्रुप्स विद ईच अदर। पाकिस्तान ने सपोर्ट अनाउंस किया, बट कोवर्टली पाकिस्तानी मिलिट्री बैक्ड हूम अफगान तालिबान, एंड अफगान तालिबान लीडर स्टार्टेड सपोर्टिंग तहरीके तालिबान बिकॉज ऑफ Pashtun nationalism, because of ethnic solidarity. So they started backing whom? Tehreek Taliban. So it was always hope against hope. Pakistan thought they will be able to control Afghan Pashtuns without understanding the history. That is what we need to learn from the history. No power has able to control Afghan Pashtuns. Muslim Punjabis will able to control Afghan Pashtuns. Only one person has able to control politically Afghanistan, that is महाराजा रणजीत सिंह। ठीक है ना, उसके अलावा आज तक अफगानिस्तान को कोई कंट्रोल नहीं कर पा रहा। ठीक है, तो यहां पर क्या इवॉल्व हो गया? अ नेक्सस इवॉल्व्ड इन द रीजन बिटवीन whom? अफगान तालिबान एंड तहरीके तालिबान। They waging war against the state of Pakistan. Covertly, Pakistan backing Afghan Taliban with the hope they will able to control them. And US was giving weapons to Pakistan, hoping they will able to use army of Pakistan to defeat Afghan Taliban. And Pakistani army started playing double game with West, and Afghan Taliban started playing double game with Pakistan. और यहां पर लश्कर जैश हिजबुल थे, मुजाहिदीन, ये सब चल रहा था यहां पर। फिर ओबामा आ गए पावर में, बुश के बाद। Obama realized peace, it is not possible to defeat Afghan Taliban. The kind of support Afghan Taliban is having from the society of Afghan. अब आपको ये समझना पड़ेगा, the leaders of Taliban, ये जो मुल्लाज हैं, ये करप्ट नहीं है। They believe in what to say, that simple life, तो क्या कहते हैं, life of austerity, life of क्या कहेंगे, not indulge in gambling, wine, women, simple life. They are not corrupt. ठीक है ना? The politicians of Afghan, leaders of Northern Ireland, they are corrupt, working for their own benefits, minting money. Talibani leaders wants to work for the society, except they are religious fundamentalists and do not give rights to the women. ये problem है उनकी, but वो society के लिए work करते हैं। ठीक है, they are not corrupt, they don't have to amass wealth for them. That is why there is a lot of support for the Afghan Taliban within Afghanistan. वैल्यू सिस्टम है उनका। इनकी प्रॉब्लम क्या थी? नो फ्रीडम टू वुमेन, दिस इज द प्रॉब्लम। नो एजुकेशन फॉर वुमेन, सप्रेशन ऑफ द वॉइस ऑफ वुमेन। अब उन्होंने प्रॉमिस किया था, इसे तालिबान 2.0 कहा गया, बिकॉज देयर लीडर्स वाज एश्योरिंग एंड गिविंग प्रॉमिस ड्यूरिंग द दोहा डिस्कशंस, अभी आएगी बात, that this time will not going to suppress the, will not going to run the repressive regime, will give adequate respect to the rights of the minorities, will give religious rights to the minorities, will not use violence against Shias, and we will be more liberal towards women. But the moment they came to power, they returned back to their old policies, and they have created a ministry of virtue and vice, and has stopped education for women, and women cannot come out of house without the company of a male member of their family. And this is because of the pressure from Islamic State, because now IS is making its presence felt in northwest Afghanistan, that is ISK, Islamic State of Khorasan, and Afghan youth is getting attracted towards Islamic State. That leaders of IS are committed for the religious objective, and the leaders of Taliban have, after acquiring power, is ignoring the religion. They have lost the religious deal, and they are not fulfilling the religious objective, that is the, because they are being taught like this. So if Taliban leaders will give rights to women, many fighters of Taliban will see their leaders have drifted away from their religious objective, and they are getting attracted towards Islamic State. That is why leaders of Taliban are not in a position to run a moderate regime, and they are coming back to the fundamental regime because of the pressure from Islamic State. रुक जाओ ना, धीरे धीरे बताने दो ना, एकदम से पूछोगे ऐसे तो फिर कैसे चलेगा? हाँ तो अभी रुको, सारी बात आएगी ना, रुक जाओ अभी. अब ये नेक्सस हो गया. ओबामा रियलाइज तालिबान कांट बी डिफीटेड, ठीक, एंड ही वाज रेडी टू रीच आउट टू द लीडर्स ऑफ तालिबान फॉर परमानेंट resolution of the issue and for the peace and the stability of Afghanistan. So they said, let's sit on the discussion table. But the leaders of Afghan Taliban refused to share the discussion table with the leaders of Northern Alliance. They said, we will directly negotiate with you. Who are Northern Alliance? We do not consider them as the legitimate stakeholder. In Afghan politics, they are your puppets. So we will negotiate peace for the future of Afghanistan, but we will negotiate directly with you. ठीक? So on this point, talks break. ठीक? फिर आ जाता है ट्रम्प, और ट्रम्प ने आते ही कहा, पाकिस्तान इज द परपेट्रेटर ऑफ टेरर, पाकिस्तान has played double game. I am cutting all funding for Pakistan. All this was welcomed by India. Modi Trump alliance, ठीक है, कि Trump is ready to take a strong stand on the issue of terrorism against Pakistan. And Trump said, I'll eliminate Taliban and there cannot be negotiations with Taliban. And he decided to send more NATO forces in Afghanistan to fight against Taliban. ये ट्रम्प ने कहा. So flip flop among the policies of the US presidents also. No consistency in their policies. अब यहां रशिया था. चीज एक हो तो आपको एक साथ बताऊं ना, चीजें इतनी सारी हैं कि हैव पेशेंस एंड लिसन विद लॉट ऑफ पेशेंस. एग्जाम के लिए जो चाहिए होगा, मैंने पहले ही आते ही क्या कहा था, आज क्या करना है, सुनना है, तो सुनो. अब ये सब मेरे को पता करने में कितने साल लगे होंगे, क्या लगता है आपको? तो एकदम से 1 घंटे में आप सब समझ जाओ, ऐसा पॉसिबल है? नहीं पॉसिबल है. तो पेशेंस के साथ सुनते चलो, और आपको सब कुछ याद भी नहीं रखना है ना. Russia was supporting NATO in their war against Taliban because Taliban was a challenge for Russia also. These were the warlords who fought against Russia. ठीक है. Russia acquired Crimea in 14. This escalated tensions with West. They expelled Russia from G8 and they imposed sanctions on Russia. This tilted Russia towards China. And also Russia started feeling uncomfortable with the presence of NATO in the region. Russia decided to cut down all support for the West in the region. So Russia withdrew its support for NATO in the region. This served the fortunes for Afghan Taliban. Meanwhile, US-Pakistan tensions increased, and this brought Russia and Pakistan closer. Pakistan started reaching out to Russia also. ठीक. Within month or few months, Trump also realized Taliban cannot be defeated. And he said, I can eliminate Taliban within a week, but then do not blame us for human rights violations. Because it is not possible to discriminate between civilians and the fighters of Taliban. And he said, I am ready for negotiations with Taliban. I am ready for negotiations. अब 11 के बाद हुआ क्या था वेस्ट एशिया में? एक आउटफिट इमर्ज हुआ, इस्लामिक स्टेट, जिसका पहले ऑब्जेक्टिव था टू एक्वायर टेरिटरीज ऑफ इराक एंड सीरिया. लेटर दे ब्रॉडेंड इट टू खलीफेट. अब जब खलीफेट अनाउंस किया तो कोई मोनार्की तो सपोर्ट करेगी नहीं. जब तक इस्लामिक स्टेट ऑफ आईएस था, बहुत सारों ने सपोर्ट किया. बट जैसे इट इज समथिंग लाइक कि मैं कल को पॉलिटिकल पार्टी बनाऊं, आप उसे ज्वाइन करो, मैं आपको टिकट दूं, मैं आपको सपोर्ट करूंगा, बट आप मुझे ही चैलेंज करोगे तो नहीं चल पाएगा। तो ये सेम पॉलिटिक्स है, ठीक है। डू नॉट चैलेंज माई पावर, ठीक। भिंडरा वाले को किसने क्रिएट किया? इंदिरा गांधी ने। बट जब उसको ही चैलेंज करेगा तो हटाना पड़ेगा। दिस इज व्हाट द पॉलिटिक्स इज, नो वन कैन चैलेंज मोदी इन बीजेपी, ठीक। So once they declared caliphate, it became a threat. So IS, many fought with IS. IS lost power, but the leaders of IS wanted to keep their presence intact, and they found Afghanistan is a ground where they can have their presence because of the chaos, instability, where they can found new recruits and fighters. So IS started making its presence right in Khorasan province of Afghanistan with the name ISK. अब क्या बन गई एक और? इस्लामिक स्टेट ऑफ खुरासन। अब अफगान तालिबान किससे नेगोशिएट करने के लिए रेडी बैठा है? यूएस के साथ। दे आर रेडी टू सिट ऑन द डिस्कशन टेबल विद द वेस्टर्न लीडर्स। अब ट्रंप ने कहा आई एम ओपन फॉर नेगोशिएशन। लास्ट टाइम तालिबान ने कहा था नॉर्दर्न अलायंस नहीं डिस्कस करेंगे। ट्रंप कहता है ओके, लेट्स डिस्कस डायरेक्टली, bypassing the leadership of Northern Alliance, which came as a shock for Northern Alliance. So means US is not a reliable, we cannot rely on US. US is not a reliable ally. Any day US can bypass that movement. It will be about its interest. आप देखो वेस्ट पे आप कभी Britain left from India because Britain was not in a position to maintain peace, leaving millions on their own fate, and artificially demarcated the line and just left subjects on their own fate. So now US is ready to leaving its allies on their own fate. Allies means those who supported Western efforts within Afghanistan. So US bypassed the leadership of Northern Alliance and agreed to have open negotiations and discussions with the leaders of Afghan Taliban. तो मैंने जो उस दिन बताया था, तो यहाँ पर दो फैक्शंस इमर्ज हुए अफगान तालिबान के। एक जो एग्रीड हो गए डिस्कशन से, एक कहते थे नहीं, वी विल नॉट गोइंग टू डिस्कस एनीथिंग टिल द टाइम देयर इज द प्रेजेंस ऑफ नाटो ऑन आवर सॉइल। सो फर्स्ट नाटो जाए बाहर, फिर वी विल डिस्कस। फर्स्ट यू शुड टेक ऑल योर फोर्सेस बैक, फर्स्ट नाटो शुड वैकेट अफगानिस्तान, देन वी विल डिस्कस। सो दोज हु सेड फर्स्ट नाटो शुड withdraw itself, they became bad Taliban of US. Those who were ready for negotiation, even in the presence of NATO, they became good Taliban of US. For Pakistan, this whole Afghan Taliban is good Taliban. This Taliban is bad Taliban. Who was not ready to differentiate between these violent groups? India. And India considered they all are threat for the peace and the stability and the liberties. And we need to come together to fight against these groups. Rajnath Singh has given this statement. We are ready to support Pakistan in its war against terror. Which are the terrorist groups for the state of Pakistan? BLA and TIT. But first you should stop differentiating between good and bad terror. अगर तुम लश्कर जैश हिजबुल को weapons दोगे तो how you will eliminate TIT? But पाकिस्तानी लीडरशिप के बाद समझ नहीं आ रही थी. Anyways, so Trump offered negotiations and direct negotiations with the leaders of Taliban. They said, we are ready for negotiation. Who was against this offer? First, Northern Alliance. Who was against this offer? India. How can you bypass the elected leadership? They are one of the main stakeholders. So India's stand was there should be an inclusive peace process where the leaders of Northern Alliance should be the part of the negotiation and the discussion table. You should not bypass them, right? Leaders of Taliban demanded release the Talibani fighters from Afghan jails. Fighters from Afghan jails. And NATO should withdraw from our soil. Then we'll go for negotiation. Northern Alliance was not ready to release the Talibani fighters. US pressurized. You should. And Taliban agreed, okay, we are ready for, you release 5,000 fighters and give us at least the dateline before that by this time you will go for withdrawal. And we are ready for sharing the discussion table with the leaders of Northern Alliance. So this talk started in Doha. Doha talk started, Doha peace talks for the future of the state of Pakistan. future of Afghanistan between US. So Trump sent its special representative, Taliban, Afghan Taliban leaders of Northern Alliance, how power sharing agreement will take place. Okay. US President Trump agreed to give the deadline for withdrawal. Okay. Agreed to give the deadline for withdrawal, and 5,000 fighters were released. Around 5,000 release हुए थे, ठीक है? So who was against the withdrawal of NATO till the time contours of power sharing not finalized? Northern Alliance. So it was very clear Afghan forces does not have the capability and the will to counter Taliban. If NATO will leave, Taliban will going to take over power. So Northern Alliance was totally against this, that till the time power sharing is not finalized, NATO should be there. And India's stand was also the same. Till the time contours of power sharing will not be finalized, NATO should have its presence within Afghanistan. ठीक. There was a time when Trump said, India needs to do more. This is your backyard. You claim its sphere of influence. You want strategic term. We should send your forces here. You should send forces. Trump said, you only building libraries. You have built the parliament. You are building dams. You are building roads. Dilaram Jirang Highway. We are giving blood. West is giving blood for the peace and stability of the region. India refused to send its forces there because it's a NATO military action. Okay. Not a military action through collective security of UN. So India sending forces means India has become the part of the US-led military alliance, and it would have escalated tensions with Taliban. That's why India has been able to acquire a lot of goodwill, because India never set its soldiers on ground in Afghanistan. But in Doha, Pakistan leadership was invited when the talks were going on. China was the part of the peace talks. So who lost the depth here? Again, India. So US, Taliban, Northern Alliance, Pakistan and China was the part of the discussion table, and India was not the part of the discussion table. So it was impacting our depth in the region. Trump realized we need Pakistan for the graceful withdrawal, because Pakistan still have lot of hold or lot of influence over leaders of Taliban. And I was saying that how can we be sure that Afghan Taliban is not using Pakistan to achieve the political objective of acquiring power in Afghanistan, and once they have, they will aspire for Greater Pashtunistan. This is what I used to say and think. ठीक है, यहां तक की बात हुई. दोहा में ये सब चल रहा था. अब जब 5,000 fighters when came out of jail, they saw their leaders sharing discussion table with whom? West. Giving assurance will run a moderate regime. Giving assurance will give rights to the woman. And they came to know there is another outfit who aspires for caliphate, who aspires for the land of prophet. Many joined Islamic State. अब outside power जा रही है, इनको खुद से लड़ना एक दूसरे से. As I said, they can't live in peace. If they will not have any external enemy, they have to fight with each other. So already tensions, violence and conflict has started between whom? Afghan Taliban and Islamic State. And Afghan Taliban is posing threat for whom? Pakistan. And that is why Pakistan is ready to support Islamic State, not realizing in future Islamic State will assassinate the leaders of Pakistan. हाँ, ये मेरा भी क्वेश्चन है, बट मुझे लगता है कि पता होगा, डोवाल जानते ही होंगे सब. I don't have a doubt in this that Ajit Doval is not aware of all this. ठीक, अभी और चीजें बताता हूँ, रुक जाओ. ये बात हुई. अब बाइडेन आ गए यहाँ पर. When Trump announced the withdrawal of NATO forces from Afghanistan, Democrats were critical of this decision of Trump, right? Because Democrats said, if we'll leave, Taliban will make a comeback. So how will justify our military presence there for 20 years? When we came, Taliban was in power, and when we left, Taliban has again acquired power. So how will justify this? So there was a lot of criticism against this decision of Trump. Meanwhile, Russia realized that who is on the back foot? US. Russia realized who is ready, who has released the fighters? Afghan government under the pressure of US. Who is ready for withdrawal? US. Thick. Russia decided to reach out to Afghan Taliban. And Russia invited the Afghan Taliban delegation to Moscow. Thick. Increasing Russia's presence here is in our interest or against our interest? समझने लग गए. That is why we are neutral on Russia's war in Ukraine, because we need Russia to reach out to whom? And who allowed? So we realized Taliban will be a major player. Main play powers are ready to accept the legitimacy of Taliban. Either we stuck to our old policy of not engaging, which will impact our interest, or keep aside ideology, be more pragmatic, and if they are ready to give us assurance they will not work against India or support violent activities against India, we should be ready to reach out to them. And who will help them? Who will help us to reach out to them? Russia. And that is why Russia opened another channel of engagement with Afghan Taliban in Moscow, where a delegation of Afghan Taliban was invited, and India sent its representative there. First time unofficially Indian representative engaged with Afghan Taliban. So were we invited in Doha? No, but we were invited in Moscow. So who is a close strategic ally of ours? Russia. Whom we need? US जा रहा है यहाँ से. Whom we need to keep our influence intact? Russia. Ab allegations on the electoral manipulation by Putin in US, that Trump brought to power by Putin by manipulation of electoral politics in US. ठीक है, ये पता है ना बात? बताया था. So that Russia rigged the elections, Russia manipulated so many things in Russia sent its hackers in US, and Putin never wanted Hillary Clinton, who has taken a very rigid and anti-rigid stand. He said Putin is a monster. So he never wanted Hillary Clinton to come to power. And who brought Trump into power? Putin. And Trump, by announcing immediate withdrawal, is paying back to Russia, because immediate withdrawal will lead to power vacuum. Immediate withdrawal will lead to power vacuum. And whose influence is increasing in the region? Russia's influence is increasing. So Trump, by going for immediate withdrawal, is serving the interest of Russia in the region. And Trump is doing this because Putin brought him into power for this objective. So that Russia should have its strategic depth in the region. So what Soviets failed to achieve, Putin is about to achieve that. So Putin is reviving the lost glory of Soviet. That is why the strong support for Putin within Russia, and it is in our interest. ठीक. अब Biden आ गया power में, but Biden decided to stick to the same deadline, and this means it was just for the, this criticism was for vote bank politics, for domestic politics. Otherwise, there was a consensus in the US foreign policy that it's time US should leave. अब US गया क्यों यहाँ से? तालिबान से डर गया? अब US यहाँ से जाता क्यों है? देखो, अब यहाँ पर है मलक्का स्ट्रेट. पता है ये बात? मलक्का स्ट्रेट So China suffers from Malacca dilemma that India with its strong navy here can restrict the entry of China in the region. और आगे बताऊंगा China is building string of pearl here. So China has invested very heavily in the region. Who can cut down China's influence? India with its strong navy. Who is strengthening the naval capabilities of India? US by giving us Comcasa technology. आगे आएगा ये बात. US has given us Comcasa, BECA. This has increased the naval capabilities and has strengthened the interoperability with the naval forces of US and Japan. और यहां पर हम करते हैं एक ट्रायलेटरल नेवल मिलिट्री एक्सरसाइज मालाबार with Japan, US and India, and now Australia is also a part of this. And Japan, US use Comcasa. They have also given us the same technology. It has increased interoperability of our naval forces with the Western forces. Also, we have signed LEMOA agreement, Logistic Exchange Memorandum of Understanding. Means we can use each other's military logistics in the region. And Diego Garcia is a US naval military base. This has given access to us of US military assets also. And we'll be able to use US warships also because of the LEMOA. So China suffers from Malacca dilemma. और इसीलिए हमने यहाँ पे क्या बना दिया? Quad. और US ने क्या बना दिया? AUKUS. So China, if we will, in case of tensions, our navy restricts the entry of China in the region. China has to circumference Australia. That is why China announced One Belt, One Road project. It has two components, Belt Road and Maritime Silk Route. And CPEC is one of the component of BRI. CPEC passes from POK, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and ends in Gwadar, Indian Ocean. In Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, TIT aa gaya, Tehreek-e-Taliban. Who wants to govern it through Sharia? They consider the presence of China here as Chinese imperialism. Theek. US has left from here, Afghanistan, giving power in the hands of Afghan Taliban. And when US left, US has left all its weaponry in the hand of Afghan Taliban. अभी बताऊंगा. तो US जब गया, सारी weaponry तालिबान को देके गया. Was US not in a position to destroy this weaponry? Yes, but US purposefully has given all weaponry in the hands of Afghan Taliban. Afghan Taliban is the only political entity at present in the world having fighter jets but no fighter pilots. अब यहां पे अफगान तालिबान किसको बैक करेगा? TIT को. And TIT will challenge China because any power who has not fought with Taliban is Afghanistan is China. So who will going to spoil the Malacca dilemma? Who will going to cut down Chinese reach in Indian Ocean? TIT with the help of Afghan Taliban. तो US इसलिए गया है ताकि चाइना के लिए यहाँ पर political instability बढ़े. So US is escalating tensions along Taiwan, and US wants to escalate tensions with Islamic fundamentalists because China is increasing its presence. So now China keeping political stability intact will have its own cost. It will increase economic cost for China to keep regional stability intact, right? And if China will fail to do so, it will lead to economic chaos in China, which can lead to political protests, which will turn China into a democratic state. So who will make China a democracy? Afghan Taliban. ये भी रुक जा. अब ये सब के लिए यूएस यहां से गया. It's a strategic retreat of US. It's a strategic withdrawal, not defeat of US. हाँ, it's a strategic retreat or strategic withdrawal of US. ठीक है? So ये सारा गेम है यहाँ से यूएस का जाने का because US wants to escalate tensions between China and Afghan Taliban. अब क्वेश्चन ये है, so China wants Afghan Taliban to have good ties with it, and Afghan Taliban should not back TIT. Pakistan wants to have good ties with Afghan Taliban, expecting they should not back TIT. But US has left from here with the objective, with this objective that it is not possible they will not back TIT. And this is what exactly is happening. So when US left, there was a euphoria in the state of Pakistan that we have been able to achieve our political objective. And at that time, I said, soon you will see tensions between Pakistan and Afghan Taliban, and probably Afghan Taliban will come to India. And this is what exactly has happened within 3 years. Okay. So when Biden announced one more thing which Taliban demanded, मैं जो बताया नहीं, so they demanded the release of 5,000 fighters, and they demanded economic compensation from US for their 20 years of war, that it has impacted the economy of Afghanistan badly. No report that US has given money, but US has left with all its weaponry in the hands of Afghan Taliban. So it's a purposefully they have done that, and that is why I'm saying it's a strategic retreat. Now, US has it will going to be a diplomatic blot on US. When you came, Taliban was in power. You are leaving, Taliban has again took over power. So what you have achieved? So they need to justify their military presence. रात 11 बजे उनका at around 11 o'clock they started withdrawing from Bagram Air Base, which now US wants to take it back. Morning I came to Rahul. They said, sir, एक podcast करते हैं about this sudden new updates where US has went for withdrawal. Around 11 o'clock or 12, we recorded the podcast where I said, now US president will come in front of the world media and will say, we never came here for bringing democracy on gunpoint. We were here for dismantling of terror, and we have done that. And exactly these were the words around 5 o'clock in the evening when US President Biden, वो अभी भी नेट पर है, मैं आपको शेयर भी करूंगा वो वीडियो, that when what he said in his press conference, US never went for establishing democracy. Whatever political system Afghans wants to live with, they are free to do so. We went there for dismantling terror camps, and US has successfully achieved that. So in the Doha talks, they were seeking commitments from Afghan Taliban leaders that you will not allow the soil of Afghanistan for planning terrorist activities against West. Means you can do it against others. Because the language was this: you should not allow your soil for terrorist activities against West. Leaders of Taliban said that if you want such assurance, you need to give us economic compensation. No such compensation. There is no reports in public domain that any such compensation was given. What is there in the public domain is US left with all its sophisticated weaponry in the hands of Taliban. तो पैसा नहीं दिया, weapons देके चले गए. $1 billion of weapons they have given into the hands of Taliban with the objective of what? To create chaos, violence, and instability. And Afghan Taliban has already started doing this. So when Taliban came to, and now when NATO started withdrawal, we were well aware Taliban will make a comeback. We went for abrogation of 370. This is the reason for the sudden abrogation of 370, and there was a tactical acceptance of judiciary towards that. That's why judiciary never entertained an appeal for a year, because we were looking forward how Afghan Taliban will going to pursue policies towards India. So when Taliban came to power, they didn't give any anti-India statement. They appreciated India's efforts in Afghanistan, that India is interested in the peace and the stability of Afghanistan. India do not interfere in our domestic politics. Okay, so they appreciated Indian treatment, and they themselves said, we want India to continue with its diplomatic missions in Afghanistan, and assurance they will not use violence against the minorities and the Shias. But pressure from Islamic State is making Afghan Taliban to not be too moderate, and already clashes have started between Afghan Taliban and Islamic State, and Afghan Taliban is backing TIT. And this is escalated tension between Pakistan and Afghan Taliban. And if Pakistan will be backed by China aggressively, this will turn Afghan Taliban against China too, and that's what US wants. In case, फिर वही back to square one हो जाएगा. So for Pakistan and China, who is the challenge? TIT. And if Afghan Taliban will also back them, then it will become a challenge for both. And already there are tensions between Pakistan and Afghan Taliban, and that's why uneasiness within Pakistan for the outreach of Afghan Taliban to India. एक सेकेंड, समझ में आई बात? ठीक है ना? सो ये सारा फिलहाल यहाँ पर ये चल रहा है. तो गेम क्या है सारा? Of having strategic depth in the region, and Afghanistan is at the crossroad of South Asia, West Asia and Central Asia. मैंने बताया था बहुत सारी बातें वेस्ट एशिया में जाके क्लियर होंगी और बहुत सारी बातें सेंट्रल एशिया में जाके क्लियर होंगी. तो थोड़ा सा और रुक जाओ, बहुत सारी बातें जो आई कांट टेल यू राइट नाउ. सो ब्रॉडर पिक्चर इज दिस. ठीक. हाँ, अब यही बात है. आर वी कैन वी कॉम्प्रोमाइज ऑन आर? Is it like this? We only have diplomatic ties with democracies. We have ties with UAE or not? So when we can have UAE, we can't we have with Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan? On the assurance they will not use violence against India. अब एक चीज जो मैं बता रहा था, मुझे भुला देते हो. Last time when Taliban came to power, Taliban got recognition within hours from Pakistan. देखो, एक होता है रिकॉग्निशन, स्टेट को रिकॉग्निशन, एक होता है गवर्नमेंट को रिकॉग्निशन. If you will give recognition to government, only then you will have diplomatic ties with that government. State recognition is 2/3 members of General Assembly should recognize you, then you become state. Taliban came to power through force, so most of the countries cut down diplomatic ties with Taliban. It's a radical fundamentalist outfit. 3 countries gave recognition to Taliban: Saudi Arabia, UAE and Pakistan within hours. But this time, ironically, Taliban has come to power. Assurance will not suppress minorities brutally, will run a moderate regime. Earlier gave assurance that will take care of the education of the girls also. But this time, Taliban has not got legitimacy or recognition from any state yet. And why Pakistan didn't give recognition? Because they wanted to see what kind of policies Afghan Taliban will pursue. So this time they have not got recognition, but the chances that it will acquire legitimacy has increased manifold from the countries of the world. Why? Because now there is Islamic State. And who is a bigger threat? State. That's why Russia has recognized. So at present, for Russia, Afghan Taliban is a threat or Islamic State? So no one has been able to defeat Afghans. Who can defeat Afghans? Afghans of itself. लोहे को लोहा काटता है ना. So that is why all are ready to use Taliban to cut down Islamic State. And who is ready to back Islamic State? Pakistan. समझे? So इस बार तालिबान की लेजिटिमेसी ज्यादा, Taliban will be accepted as a legitimate entity, and many countries are ready to start diplomatic ties with Taliban has increased. Why? Because now a more radical outfit is there, that is Islamic State. Okay. So it's not about ideology, it is about interest. If Taliban is not threatening India's interest, do you think we should have issue in not engaging with them? We don't endorse their domestic policies, that's a different thing. हम उनकी पॉलिसीज को एंडोर्स नहीं कर रहे हैं, बट इज इट मीन वी शुड नॉट एंगेज विद देम डिप्लोमेटिकली? हमारे जुंटा लीडरशिप ऑफ म्यांमार के साथ भी तो डिप्लोमेटिक एंगेज. डू वी एंडोर्स देयर डोमेस्टिक पॉलिसीज? नो. डू वी एंडोर्स ऑल द पॉलिसीज ऑफ द स्टेट ऑफ इजराइल? और डू वी एंडोर्स एवरी पॉलिसी ऑफ यूएस? नो. फिर अभी जो रिसेंटली जो डिप्लोमेट्स से जो फीमेल रिमूव कर दिया गया, अरे अपने कोर इंटरेस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट है, बाकी सब ओपन. अभी आपको पता नहीं है ना कि कोर इंटरेस्ट क्या हमारे हर्ट हो रहे हैं. हमारे कोर इंटरेस्ट स्टेक पर हैं. हमें अपने कोर इंटरेस्ट बचाने हैं या आइडियोलॉजी बचानी है? फिर आप कोर इंटरेस्ट कॉम्प्रोमाइज करोगे किनके? हाँ, तो अब अब अगर leaders of Taliban want peace, stability, development in the region, they will look out towards whom? Because in general, who is responsible for chaos, extremism, and violence in the society of Afghanistan? Pakistan. And India has a lot of goodwill within the society of Afghanistan. So if they want to have, they want to pursue peace, development, and stability in Afghanistan, they will look towards us. If they want to pursue what they want to achieve, that is up to them. So if they will reach out to Pakistan, which is a bleak possibility now, it will serve the interest of China. If the tensions with Pakistan will increase, if they will further support TIT, which will push for violence in Pakistan, this is bound to escalate tensions with China, and this is what US and West want. किसको? हाँ तो अफगान चाइना इज फाइन विद अफगान तालिबान, यूएस इज फाइन विद अफगान तालिबान, रशिया इज फाइन विद अफगान तालिबान, इंडिया इज फाइन विद अफगान तालिबान. Okay, issue is TIT. Pakistan also fine with Afghan Taliban. So you need to understand, in Doha, China is ready to give legitimacy to Afghan Taliban. Russia is ready, US is ready, Iran is ready. So who will be isolated? India, and that is why we decided, keep aside ideology. Let's reach out to Afghan Taliban, and who will help us in this endeavor? Russia. So we started looking toward Russia to reach out to Afghan Taliban. क्या होना चाहिए? क्यों? मैंने आपको सब बता दिया. अब फ्यूचर क्या होगा, ये फ्यूचर में आपको पता चली जाएगा कि क्या होगा. अब अपनी बुकलेट ओपन करो, इंडिया अफगानिस्तान वाली. सबसे पहले तो टाइमलाइन पढ़ो. A quick glance of the timeline. हाँ मतलब he tried to use USSR against West, मतलब he was pro Soviet. आज का होमवर्क है जो मैंने अभी शेयर किया आपके साथ ग्रुप पे. अब ये याद नहीं करना है, ठीक है? और जब ट्रैवल कर रहे हो तो देखना 50 क्वेश्चंस ऑन 9/11, उससे बाद फिर बात करेंगे, ठीक है? मतलब यू आर ट्रैवलिंग, यू आर डूइंग अनप्रोडक्टिव थिंग, है ना? हाँ तब कर देखना उसे, यानी कि पढ़ाई के टाइम पे बैठ के वीडियो देख रहे हो, ठीक है? मतलब वो ऐसा है कि ठीक है, और जितने क्वेश्चन सुनोगे उतना ज्यादा आप हैरान हो जाओगे, आपको inquisitiveness will develop a lot. So what all I have told you ना, now you will start understanding what all is written. इससे पहले सब समझ ही नहीं आता, ठीक है? अब आपको ब्रॉडर ओवरव्यू पिक्चर न्यूज़पेपर में जो आर्टिकल्स आएंगे आपको सब बात समझ आने लग जाएगी, ठीक है ना? व्हाई टेंशंस बिटवीन इस्लामिक स्टेट एंड तालिबान, अदरवाइज इट इज डिफिकल्ट टू कॉम्प्रिहेंड इनके बीच में क्या है. सो अल कायदा इज डिफरेंट, तालिबान इज डिफरेंट, इस्लामिक स्टेट इज डिफरेंट, ठीक है? हम्म. हाँ वहाबीज हैं. ये बात मुझे इस्तांबुल में पता चली थी, ब्लू मॉस्क पे, यूनेस्को प्रोटेक्टेड है, वहां कोई मिले थे इस्लामिक प्रीचर, उनसे पूछा था मैंने कि वहाबीज और सलाफीज में डिफरेंस क्या है. बहुत कंफ्यूजिंग था ये. अब आप समझ कि इफ इवन इफ यू डोंट नो दिस यू कैन क्रैक यूपीएससी, है ना? सो एवरीथिंग इज नॉट फ्रॉम द एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. तो ज्यादा इंक्यूजिटिव होना यूपीएससी प्रिपरेशन के लिए बहुत अच्छी बात नहीं है. You need to know that much which is relevant from exam point of view. क्या किया था? हाँ तो उन्हें लगा ना अल कायदा ने जिहाद डिक्लेयर कर दिया था ना वेस्ट के अगेंस्ट. हाँ हाँ उन्होंने तो करना ही था ना उनके अकॉर्डिंग, कि 9/11 वाज a warning to the US civilians, stop atrocities against Arabs and leave from the lands of Arab. Give us Palestine. Liberate the holiest sites of ours. Taliban and Al Qaeda. Huh. They are hand in hand now. No, Taliban has given assurance just few days back. Foreign Minister said will not support terrorist activities against West. So right now, what they want that West should unfreeze their funds. West should give them legitimacy. So they are looking forward for legitimacy so that they should start getting funding from the international institutions and organizations. Till the time they will not get legitimacy, funds will not flow. So they want assurance. Okay? Now the second in command of Al Qaeda, Al Zawahiri, he was assassinated in Afghanistan. He was hiding in one of the senior. He was hiding in one of the uh, location house which belongs to the senior leader of Taliban. And the conspiracy is that it is Taliban who itself gave information about Al Zawahiri to West to show their commitment that they are with West on their war against terrorism and they will not allow any terrorist activities from their soil. So this foreign minister of Taliban has said from last 2 years, Afghan soil has not been used for violent activities against any other state. So 19 US announced a withdrawal. 2019 US announced withdrawal, na? And 2019 we abrogated Article 370. After the announcement, आप देखो कब अनाउंस किया यूएस ने. तो नेट पे एक तो मैंने आपके साथ शेयर किया ग्रुप पे, एक चेक कर, एक टाइम ऐसे टाइप करो टाइमलाइन ऑफ अफगानिस्तान, बीबीसी. अच्छा उसमें भी 19 तक का ही अपडेट है. ऐसा ही है जैसे मैंने क्रोनोलॉजी बताई है. अनाउंस कब किया? अनाउंस 19 में ना, और हमने एब्रोगेशन कब किया? 19. अरे 19 में यूएस ने अनाउंस किया था. तो जैसे ही अनाउंस किया हमने कहा ओके फिर अब हम अपना खुद देखते हैं. आप समझ गए आप विड्रॉल क्यों हुआ? एब्रोगेशन एकदम से क्यों किया हमने? मेरे ख्याल से वी रिवोक्ड इन अगस्त, अगस्त 29 ना, अगस्त 2019. जून या जुलाई में यूएस प्रेसिडेंट अनाउंस्ड विड्रॉल ऑफ नाटो. इन अगस्त 2019 हमने किया था, जून जुलाई में यूएस ने अनाउंस कर दिया था विड्रॉल. और जो डेट ट्रम्प ने अनाउंस की थी, बिडेन डिसाइडेड टू स्टिक टू दैट. सो इट वाज वेरी क्लियर देयर इज अ ऑफिशियल, दिस इज अ यूएस गेम प्लान. ठीक है ना? इट इज अ बिगर एजेंडा ऑफ यूएस because when he was in opposition he criticized withdrawal of giving space to Russia, but he decided to stick to the same dateline. So this was very clear, it was for US interest. ये कोई अभी बहुत ही ओपन एंडेड क्वेश्चन है, मैं उनको पर्सनली थोड़ा ना जानता हूँ, मैं कैसे बता दूं ये क्वेश्चन? हाँ, हाउ पावरफुल इट इज। वे रुक जा, वेस्ट एशिया आने दे। सिर्फ पाकिस्तान में सपोर्ट नहीं कर रहा है कि जो मिलिट्री लीडरशिप है they also have to take from ISIS. But now, देखो, we will support till the time you will not hurt for the time being, because right now for them bigger challenge is Afghan Taliban. So they want to keep Afghan Taliban in check so that they should not back TIT. पहले अफगान तालिबान से निपट लेना। वन एनिमी एट अ टाइम। तो जब यूएस ने अनाउंस किया विड्रॉल, हमने कहा कि ओके 370 उड़ाते हैं। यस, उन्होंने कहा था कि हम तो नहीं कर रहे। नहीं मिलना चाहिए था। हाँ, वो पाकिस्तान एबटाबाद में मिला। तो ट्रम्प ने कहा तो कि दे आर प्लेइंग डबल गेम, बट देन यूएस वांटेड टू कम आउट ऑफ दैट and they realized we need the support of the leadership of Pakistan for the graceful withdrawal. ऐसा भी होता है, सब मिलके पागल बना रहे हैं। दूसरा वर्ड मैं यूज नहीं कर सकता। दैट इज अ कर्स वर्ड। ठीक, ऐसे ही है, सब मिलके यही कर रहे हैं, हमारा कैपिटलिस्ट मिलके। अब आपको दिखने लग गया है, मुझे 10 साल से पहले से दिख रहा है, बट व्हाट टू डू। हाँ, यस, ड्यूरिंग, हाँ, पाकिस्तान बीइंग डिक्लेयर्ड एज अ रोग स्टेट, बट आपको पता तो है पाकिस्तान, हाँ, just declared rogue state, that Pakistan is a rogue state, but Trump was more assertive blaming Pakistan, but now he himself, अब वो कर, अब you can see they are going for what, critical mineral deal in Pakistan. Pakistan is just a rentier state serving the interest of the West, and population is suffering. On the name of religion and nationalism, they want to, there are few who just wants to enjoy all the benefits. Pakistan is on the verge of disintegration, that's why. For sure. For sure. Why not? We are working towards that. बताया तो ये रख ले, this will let Taliban have this, and we always have good cordial ties with Pashtuns. देखो भी कौटिल्या's अर्थशास्त्र पढ़ेंगे, and neighbor's neighbor is friend, because neighbors are bound to be enemies, because the first land we want to grab is of our neighbor. गांव में सारी लड़ाइयां किसके लिए होती हैं? साथ वाले खेत के लिए, ठीक है ना। According to Kautilya, neighbors can't be friend, and we are pursuing neighborhood first policy. Peace and stability in the neighborhood. Neighbors are bound to be aggressive, and first land we want to grab is of our neighbor. So we bound to have tensions with Pakistan, and Pakistan bound to have tensions with Afghanistan, and neighbor's neighbor is your friend. Our neighbor China, China's neighbor Russia, so Russia is bound to be our friend, and Russia, China bound to have tension. But the day there will be no Pakistan, we are bound to have tensions with Afghanistan. So जो हमारा आइडियलिज्म का होप होता है ना, ये सब जानने के बाद उड़ जाता है, तो फिर हमें लगता है अरे ये तो, it came as a crude shock to us as individuals, where suddenly our castle, our virtual world, our that which world we create in our mind, a very beautiful world of ours, crumbles in front of our eyes, and it becomes difficult to accept this, and that's why ignorance is bliss. ठीक है ना, जो हमारे कैसल होते हैं बहुत फेरी वर्ल्ड के, वो ब्रेक हो जाते हैं यार। तो दुनिया तो बड़ी है, मतलब ऐसा ही है। सो इट इज ऑल हाँ, गांधी को पता होनी चाहिए, क्यों नहीं होनी चाहिए गांधी को। गांधी जी अपने कमिटमेंट्स लेके जी रहे थे। देखो, Feb 2009, US and Taliban signed agreement on peace deal that would serve as a preliminary turn for US withdrawal. मैं शेयर कर देता हूँ. Now we were aware US is looking forward for withdrawal, and once US will withdraw, Taliban will make a comeback, and we need to be proactive. Last time when Taliban came, we saw chaos, violence in Kashmir. We need to control it. That's what we have done. हाँ, ये पक्का है. That's what I said. The day US announced withdrawal, it was very clear. It's a big challenge for us now. We need to do something regarding Kashmir. ऐसा नहीं था एग्जैक्टली पता था, बट ये जरूर पता था नेशनलिस्ट गवर्नमेंट है. वी आर गोइंग टू डू समथिंग, कुछ तो करेंगे हम. वी विल नॉट गोइंग टू सिट आइडली दिस टाइम, बिकॉज डोवाल इज आवर NSA, S. Jaishankar is the foreign minister, and Modi is the prime minister. So this time will not be that reactive. We are going to be proactive for sure, and that's what exactly happened with the abrogation of 370, right? Second, and that is why Doval was on ground when 370 was abrogated, to make sure peace should to be maintained in the valley. ये confirm हो गया. IS itself is a threat for the leaders of Kashmir, even for Hurriyat. So they also can't afford excessive radicalization of the society. Third thing confirm हो गया कि once Afghan Taliban will acquire power and they will able to consolidate their power, they will aggressively back TIT because of the Pashtun nationalism, and tensions are bound to increase between Afghan Taliban and Pakistan. Pakistani military failed to understand the lessons from the history that these tribals cannot be controlled, and no power has able to defeat them. They thought they will able to control them. So it was hope against hope. It was a fallacy for them. So the way they claim Kashmir is a fallacy, the same thought that they can have their strategic depth in Afghanistan. They are sovereign state. Afghans are freedom loving people. No power can dictate their terms on them. Pakistan will able to do so. Fair. And that is why the prediction was soon, who knows, Afghan Taliban reaching out, or India Afghan Taliban coming closer, and a high level ministerial level talks between Afghan Taliban and India in New Delhi. This is what I said, and this is the way I said, and exactly the prediction has came true in 3 years. तो मैं क्लास में कहता था कई बार, who knows, you will be sharing the seat and the discussion table with the leaders of Taliban as an IFS. So I used to think it will take 5-7 years before things will be normalized. The prediction came a bit quickly and early, within 3 years. ठीक है. अब ये बुकलेट जो है इसको पढ़ना, टाइमलाइन को पढ़ना, कल करेंगे इससे आगे कंटिन्यू. हाँ बोल. दोबारा बोल. In the near future, the party change होता है, and that is not so determined towards all this. So security में फिर हाँ, तो we have seen so many terrorist attacks within the tenure of the Congress. कोई सिक्योरिटी नहीं थी, हर तीसरे चौथे महीने अटैक हो जाता था. At will terrorists used to attack. So many who debate with me, I say that I don't. The problem is, if you are saying I'm anti-Congress, people think I'm pro-BJP. It is not like this. ठीक है ना? It's not like being pro-Modi, but at least this government has done one thing, being assertive on the issue of national security. And states' main responsibility is security. And if you can't ensure security, then why we need a state? It's anarchy. Fair? And you can see drastically there is a reduction of the terrorist attacks within India. क्या था मुंबई अटैक, क्या चल रहा है हमारे देश में? मुंबई अटैक हो रहा है, टेररिस्ट आ गए ऑन व्हील, बंदूक ले गए, फिर 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 तो ये डीप, इट वाज लाइक फाइनेंशियल कैपिटल ऑफ आवर्स, बेंगलोर में अटैक हो रहा है, ओके, पार्लियामेंट में अटैक हो रहा है, टीआईटी, आई डोंट नो, देयर इज नथिंग लाइक, are we supporting BLA? We will not going to accept this. I don't know. I don't know. You join Indian Police Services, work in security agencies, and then do not tell me, because you will not be allowed to do so under Official Secrets Act, even after retirement. And if you do so, you will be in jail for violating Official Secrets Act. नहीं आप कर सकते, ऑफिशियल सीक्रेट एक्ट के अकॉर्डिंग आप बाउंड हो, इफ यू हैव सर्व्ड इन दी सेंसिटिव पोस्ट इवन आफ्टर रिटायरमेंट यू कांट स्पीक, दोस थिंग्स विल गो विद यू इन योर ग्रेव. ब्यूरोक्रेट्स क्या लिखते हैं, वो सिर्फ ओपिनियन होता है, सीक्रेट्स कैन नेवर बी लीक्ड, दे विल गो विद यू इन योर ग्रेव. हाँ हाँ, दैट्स व्हाट. बट अब ऐसा नहीं है कि आपको कि मेरे को तो जेल जाने में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं, मैं तो करूंगा, देन यू विल बी विसल ब्लोअर. There are many whistleblowers. You will say, no, I want to do this. I know this. This is what the state even. I have my. I'm human first. Humanitarian responsibility. ठीक. सुनो 9/11 50 questions फिर करेंगे बात, ठीक है. Bye. Take care. See you.